Hello, I'm back again, and we are going to bake the UV maps now in Substance Painter, but there's a couple things we need to do. Sometimes our mesh needs to be cleaned up, and that can take some time. There might be some N-gon somewhere. We were really careful not to do that, but a lot of times that sometimes gets past us. And so the best way to make sure that you have a good bake, all the maps bake together and you won't have any issues or problems, that you have to triangulate your mesh. So I think the best thing we're going to do is just keep it safe. You can see that we are doing UDIMs, okay, and the reason for that is it gives us a lot more freedom, and it's a lot more efficient when we get into Substance Painter, that we can basically think about how we want to lay out the UDIMs as far as materials go. So I've laid these out in a way that each one of these can have a different material if we wanted to, but more than likely we're going to keep it pretty straightforward until you guys get more comfortable with texture mapping and going into Substance Painter. So we're not using very many. There are people that use 20, 30 UDIM tiles, and we're just going to use 7, so we're good with that. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to triangulate this. Now it shouldn't cause any problems with the UDIMs, because we're really not adding any more vertices, or we're only adding edges. So if we go to Mesh and we go to Triangulate, so Mesh, Triangulate, and make sure the object is selected, it's green, and then click on Triangulate. And you can see that it doesn't really do anything except add. It triangulates everything. And what that's going to do is going to keep the modeling consistent, and we won't have any errors when we try to bake. I know that makes it look really ugly, all that work we did to keep everything looking nice. So what I would suggest you do before we do that, let's go Control Z back. Okay, click on the object and do Control D. Okay, do a Control D, Control, and then D, and then click on the layer. Looks like a ball on top of a piece of paper. Click on that, and then I want you to rename this Triangulated Low Poly, just like what I have here. Okay, Triangulated Low Poly. And so you'll turn off the other one and turn that on. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we want to keep a copy of the clean mesh. That's all quads, supposedly supposed to be all quads. And then we'll triangulate the one that actually says triangulate. So we'll have the low poly here, we'll always keep that. And this one here we will triangulate. So let's go ahead and do that again. So I'm going to hold down the space bar, go to Mesh, go to Triangulate, that'll triangulate it. And so let's go ahead and open up the UV map again. We're going to have to go ahead and send these UVs out. Right, so everything's packed really nice. So let's go into the camera, and let's go in here, and we are going to lower this to 2048 by 2048. And we have 7 tiles, so we're going to click on 7 and then 1. And we're going to do PNG. That's a very clean image format. And then you're going to go to Browse, and you're going to tell it where you would like it to go. Now remember, I would always put it in the Images folder in your project. That way you know exactly where it is at all times. And this time we are going to, looks like I've got quite a few of these saved. I'm going to do large UV UDIMs. Let's just do something simple now next to it, and let's just do UV Painter There we go. And save that. And that, we'll just remember that this is a painter file, so go ahead and we'll save that out. Okay. And make sure that the object has turned green, and we'll go ahead and apply and close. Okay. We'll close the UV maps and the toolkit. And what we'll do now is we are going to go ahead and we're going to go ahead and save this scene file. One last time. I'm going to put try, T-R-I, so that tells me that it's been triangulated, and let's go ahead and save that. Now we want to export this object out, so I'm going to click off and click back on, and I'm going to hold down the space bar and go to File, Export Selection, and click on the option box. Okay, we're going to go ahead and export this out. We could do OBJ, we could do FBX. Let's go ahead and do FBX, Export Selection. And we have problems, we can always do OBJ. So I'm going to do FBX first and then do an OBJ. Okay. What happened here? Let me try that again, find out what. I think I clicked on something I shouldn't have. Export Selection, FBX Export. Okay, so I'll click on Export Selection, and then here you're going to want to open up your file type specific options, and under geometry you're going to click on smoothing groups. I think this one's already on, and then reference assets content, and then everything else is just defaulted. And just type in something like let's see, create low poly TRI in all caps, and then FIN. There we go. That's FBX. I'm gonna highlight. I'm actually highlight that and do a Control C, and then just click off there, and then hit Export Selection. Oh, okay, that didn't help. So File, you gotta have it selected, and export, and do the same thing, and then I'll just do a paste here because I already, and then save Export Selection. Okay, that should export just fine. And then I'm going to do a quick export selection of a OBJ, and there that is. And I'm just going to go ahead and do Control V, that way I don't have to spell it out again, and then export selection. Now where did it go? I didn't even pay attention, so I'm going to do that again. So that is under module 1, so for some reason I needed to go into the scenes folder. So what I'm going to do is I need to pay a little closer attention, but I'm going to go through and find my files and get them in the right folder. It's really important. I'm kind of a stickler on that anyway, so here they are. So I'm going to select all 3 of those because MTL needs to be part of the OBJ. I'm going to go ahead and just copy that and open the scenes folder and just right click over there and paste it. Alright, so we're good there. Next thing we're going to do, or we're good with that, you need to have your Mudbox high poly ready to go, wherever that may be. It's probably a very big file. I think this one is like 500 megabytes. Yeah, 514, because we had over 8 million polygons. If you remember doing that in the last module, it's just huge. So you need to have that ready to go. So because we're going to make maps with that. I'm going to go back into my open my Substance Painter. Don't worry if yours doesn't look exactly like mine. I've turned some stuff off. I'll turn it back on again and I'll take you through all this. And you probably see something different here, maybe a little bit smaller, but I'm going to move that up a little bit. Okay, so a little bit about Substance Painter. This is the viewport that you can rotate, and you can hold down the Alt key, and it's just like Maya. Now, the first time you open it, it may ask you, do you want to use Maya hotkeys and all that stuff? Sure, why not? So I would add that. So if we want to get started with our project, go ahead and go to File, and we're going to go to New. And this will open up the dialog box, a new project dialog box, and usually it will set you up just what you should have. Okay. If you don't see this, where it says PBR metal metallic roughness algorithmics, you'll need to click on it. So look for PBR metallic roughness. It usually comes up defaulted at that, so no issue there. Create a texture set per UDIM tile. We need to have that because we use UDIM tiles. They're more efficient, and it's going to give us a little more freedom to do more stuff with Substance Painter. And instead of 1024, we're going to do 2048. Okay. Do we have any other maps? Nah. We're going to bake all our maps in here. We need to select our mesh. So it says right there, mesh, and then click on select. And so we need to find our mesh. So mine, I already know where mine is, so hopefully you know where yours is. And that's why it's so important to have your stuff in project folders. Okay, here's my project and in the scenes. And I called it create low poly try finished. Okay. I don't think it matters if it's FBX or if it's an OBJ. If it does cause me problems, I will go get the FBX in there, but I'm going to do the OBJ. I think that'll work just fine. So there it is. There's my OBJ. And open. Remember, we had to make sure we have to click on the triangulated mesh, because that's what I called it, and it's really important that you rename stuff and it makes sense. Otherwise, you're going to be looking around all over for it. So once you get it all in, you can see that I got the right file, and click OK. Alright, hold down your Alt and your left mouse button just like in Maya, and you can rotate around in here. And notice everything's popped up here. It's pretty cool. So basically, this is your maps. Okay. Now I already know it pulled in just right because it looks like the maps pulled in here. So that's awesome. So let me talk about this. These are the properties. This is where we can kind of paint on the crate if we wanted to. We've got the brush size and the flow and the stroke opacity and the spacing. It doesn't look like much, but actually does have a lot of really cool features. And we're just going to touch on a couple today, so I'm not going to get y'all worked up just yet. But we're going to eventually get through everything and learn just a little bit every time. Otherwise, I'm going to overwhelm you with all these new things that you got to learn, especially learning Maya too. So, okay, so what we want to do now is we need to find the texture set list. Okay, that texture set list, I'm going to pull that just out, and you can dock this stuff. Let me dock that. I probably should put it. Let me dock it right here underneath. There we go. Okay, I'm going to move that. Whoops. Let's do that again. Dock that. It's a little finicky, and then I'm going to move that up. There we go, just so we can see. Alright, so okay, there's my properties, and here's my texture set list. And what's nice about, I'm going to pull this out just for a second. So what's nice about my texture set list is it's got everything. You can see the UDIM tiles from 001001 all the way to 7. We got 7 tiles. And what's cool about this is I can go in here and turn these off and on. So if we didn't do this, we'd have to mask everything, and we basically masked everything by putting them in UDIMs, which is really cool. So if I click on this, I can solo this. So I can just solo those those front pieces. And you can see the back too. Okay, so with that, that's pretty cool. And I click that off again, and opens everything back up. So if you want to solo something or whatever, that's really cool. All right, so I'm going to, I really don't look at my texture matte, my texture or UVs. So I'm going to make them a little bit smaller. That gives me a little more room here. Plus, I'm going to move this a little bit down a little bit more, like that. Okay. All right, so so this is our texture set list. We can turn those things off and on. You have to select them, and let's go to layers now. This is really important. So I'm going to turn this off. Okay, it's okay because it docks itself back over here. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my layers. This is the second most important thing here, other than the texture set list. Okay, with that, works kind of like Photoshop. So if you've used Photoshop, you'll feel right at home. So anything on the top layer will be on, will cover up or be on top. So it works just like it. And we've got different tools up here. We've got Add Effect, Add Mask, Add Layer, and Add Fill. We've got Add a Smart Material, and we've got Add a Folder. And we got a garbage can. Anytime you get yourself in trouble, you click on a layer and you can just click on the garbage can. Okay. And when we delete stuff, you can see it comes up here. So at the very top, we've got the texture settings. So if you accidentally click off that, you can go back up here and just click on it. Okay. Get that back again. We've got our layers right here. Okay. So if we want our layers, we can have our layers, and if we want our painting, we got our painting, and we got our display right here, okay, and so on and so forth. So we're not going to do too much. I don't want to confuse you right away, but at least you get started with these, okay. And so these are basically your menus. If you've ever used ZBrush or Mudbox, you got those menus. Mudbox has the menus on the bottom. Right. So now on the bottom here, and you can move that up. Okay. What's nice about this is pretty cool. Is that we got our shelf. Okay. So the shelf is basically where all your stuff is. So we have alphas. Now there's a huge amount of alphas because I already put my alphas in here, but there's some really great alphas in here that come with Substance Painter. Now it does basically the same thing that Mudbox does, but I wanted you guys to get into Mudbox because I like that workflow, even though the workflow with this is okay, but then you have to bake again. The workflow is a little different if you want to get those nice worn edges, and there's a lot more involved. So that's why I wanted to do the high poly in Mudbox. And there's some great grunge materials here, so you can look at those and use those, of course, some procedurals. And as we move forward and explore more of this stuff, you're gonna have a lot of fun. Then we got our hard surfaces. Basically, you can push and pull with these normal mapped. It looks like little icons, or just kind of like the stamping. It's kind of like a stamp. And we got our brushes. They got some really great brushes, and of course you can download brushes too online. We got particles where they're really cool too. If you use particles, I'll show you. We'll do that later. But it's kind of like sprinkling stuff on, and it kind of gets on the object and just kind of drips down. It's really pretty cool. I don't use them much. It's not because they're not cool. It's just it's not practical if you're trying to do something realistic, unless you're trying to show that paint's dripped down. It's hard to control sometimes. And tools, we got some tools here, and here's the one that is the biggest thing, is the materials. Now I'm going to have a lot more materials than you will have, because I've been building my library up. So you can use Substance Share. Substance Share, if you write that down, Substance Share is a great place to go and do your materials and find new materials and add those in there. How do you add a material? Well, they have to be an SBSAR material. So you can go on Substance Share and go to the materials and pick a couple and download those and just make sure they're SBSAR. And how do you load those in there? So if you have a material you want to load in there, or if you have a smart material you want to load that in there, then you can. So materials. So if you go in here with the box with that's basically import, right? So you go in here and you can go add a resource, okay? And usually I put all my stuff on the desktop, and see if we can find one in here. And there it is. I got one that's called rubber. Okay, so it's called a substance archive, and you click on it, and I'm just going to do one, and then click open, and then you can see that there it is, rubber, SBSAR. That's good, and it's rubber, and it's unidentified. So you click that and do base material. So, and then where do you want to put it? Well, you have a choice of current session, project, or shelf. I want it now. The current session will just go into this session, and you use it, and then it gets rid of it. Project, it'll stick with the project as long as you have your project open. So meaning that if I pull it in and I save my project out as a Substance Painter project file, it'll pull in again with the materials when I do my project. But if you don't have a project, you don't save your project, it gets deleted. And then you have your shelf, which is the safest one. But the thing is, you can see that this will add up and take a lot of space on your hard drive. And then click import, and it will highlight. So there it is, industrial rubber. Very cool. If you hang over them long enough, they'll open up for you. And some of them are very cool. You do get quite a few really cool materials. Okay. Smart materials. Wow. You have one that we're going to use, and steel painted. That comes with, and it's a powerhouse. I'm telling you that's a powerhouse one. We're going to show you how to use those. The only way to use them though is if you bake your maps. So we got to bake our maps before we can use that. All right. So I basically took you through everything. Oh yeah, if you want to see larger icons, you can click on the large, or you can click on small. Those are hard to see. Usually medium or large. It doesn't matter to me which one you want, so click on that box over there. Alright, so cool. So the next thing we're going to do in the next video, part 2. So this is part 1, Substance Painter part 1. And Substance Painter part 2, we're going to go in and bake our maps. And once those are baked, then we'll save it out. And then we're ready to go back into Maya. I'll show you how to put everything together and render it out. It's going to be cool. Alright, I'll see you guys in a little bit.